Review copy provided by the author.
I love going into a book without knowing anything about it. Will the book be good, bad, or just okay? What is the story about, and the setting and the characters? I've found that a lot of the time, at least for me personally, going into a book without any background knowledge is the best way to read the book. Other times, it's probably one of the worst ways to read a book. In the case of Dead Boy's Game and The Broken Vow, I can absolutely say that I'm glad I went in knowing next to nothing, because this book surprised me. Not in a this book has so many twists and turns in the story, but more as this book surprised me with how much I enjoyed it. I went in thinking this book is probably a fine read, but won't be anything too special, and something that would probably be overshadowed by other great books that I've read this year. Well, that's definitely not the case. I liked this book. I really liked it. Honestly, I thought it was great. The fact that the author, A. David Singh, is new to writing books, and that this is one of the first fantasy books he's published is really quite amazing as well. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not the best book I've read this year, but considering I've read Isaac Asimov, H.G. Wells, and Robert Jordan, that would be kind of absurd to say that it tops books by those authors. But even the fact that I'm sitting here now thinking back on it, and that it might be in my top 10 for the year, that's pretty amazing. David Singh provided this book to me for my honest review, so in this video I'm going to give a broad overview of the story, then I'll provide my review and why I enjoyed it so much, as well as include some things that I didn't really like about it, and I'll also get into some spoilers, but I'll make sure I mark the video so that you can avoid that section if you don't want to be spoiled on anything. This book takes place in a fictionalized version of ancient Rome. It starts off with a legionary, or a Roman soldier, bringing his child named Julius to a druid called the Banished Druid. The father's hoping that the druid will be able to make it so his child will be noble and pure of heart. The druid takes Julius and also a dead child and submerges both of them into a cauldron. This is supposed to take the evil from Julius and place it in the body of the dead child. Dots of light pierce the surface and dance throughout the cauldron as if like fish in water. Magic ensues, and the life force of the living baby enters the dead baby, reviving him. Julia's father leaves with his now pure son and is not aware that the other dead child from this process lives on. The book then picks up 37 years later as both of these babies are now grown adults. Julius, following in his father's footsteps, is now legionary himself, but wants to become a senator, and Vilius, the dead child, is an apprentice to a senator of Rome, and he also hopes to become a powerful senator himself. The story then follows these characters as they strive to achieve their goals. The story also focuses on another character, Calpurnia, a female character, and just like Julius and Vilius, she wants to become a senator, making her the first senator of Rome ever. So overall, kind of weird, right? Definitely unique. The author's clearly done a lot of research on ancient Rome, because although the story is fiction and it has plenty of fantasy elements to it, it is still based in a very real world. Definitely unlike any other book I've read. And I think that actually might be one of the big reasons why I liked this book so much. I read a ton of fantasy, and a lot of time, fantasy books are about some evil lord that has to be defeated. And sure, that's fine because there are usually stories underneath that big umbrella story to keep me hooked, but the thing with this book is, it doesn't even worry about having that big evil lord at all. It's more of a character story and about their struggles to achieve what they want in life, and as a reader, this is much easier to relate to, and thus easier to be engaged by. The writing style is also very easy to get into as well. This book is written in a very basic language, so it's easy for pretty much anyone to pick up and read. That being said, it's definitely not a children's book, or even YA in my opinion, but it certainly can be read and enjoyed by younger readers, such as teenagers. The story does include some violence, but nothing overtly grotesque in nature. The main theme of this book is ambition. Each of the main characters has a goal to become a senator of Rome. This goal is then what drives forward the story, and although they all have their own separate reasons for why they want to become senators, the reader can sympathize with all of them and understand why they are striving for that goal. There are other themes in this book, such as inequality, both class inequality and gender inequality, and this, again, is something that's very accurate for the setting the story takes place in. Class and gender inequality is, of course, something that you would expect to see quite a bit in this world, and this is what leads the characters' ambitions of trying to break this mold of inequality they are stuck in. Also, this being a fantasy story, you won't be surprised to hear that magic plays a very important role in the story. I must say, this book definitely follows the fantasy mantra of let's have magic in it for the sake of there being magic in it. The story never really defines the why, how, or what of the magic systems in place, and as far as the reader is concerned, magic seems to be related to this magical plant that may or may not be magical because of the statue the plant grows from. And then also there's this gladius, or a sword, that Julius has that also has magical elements, but again, we don't get any details of why or how. And there are other magical and mystical elements in place too, but never really explained. However, it is always in the background and is very important to the story and as a driving force behind the events that happen. I've never really been bothered by fantasy stories that have undefined magic systems in place, but if you like your magic to be grounded in some sort of reality and to follow a set of rules that you can understand and follow yourself, then this book might disappoint you a little bit in that regard. One of my main gripes, though, is with the characters. The characters are all fairly interesting in their own rights, but I would have preferred more details on some of them. Getting to know them better and their backgrounds would have helped flesh them out more. Specifically Calpurnia, few chapters of this book are dedicated to her. I never got too attached to any of them like I do in other fantasy series that I read. However, I can also understand wanting to keep these details limited, since this is the first book in what will become a series. I mean, it's also a fairly short book, so those details are also kept at a minimum, that way the book doesn't become too long. Still though, I would have preferred more details, that way I could connect with the characters more. My other main gripe with this book is that there's a lot of build-up, and then the book ends when things are finally starting to get intense. Now, I don't want to make it sound like the whole book is just building up something big to happen, and then the book ends before it happens. There's still plenty of payoff throughout the story, and it is fairly interesting throughout, but let's get into some specifics. And this is your warning, I'm going to get into some spoilers, so if you want to go into this book blind, please feel free to skip this section of the video. One of the main conflicts in the story is from an impending danger of the Gauls. This is a tribe that Rome is constantly fighting with. This is an outside threat until the end of the book, when it very much becomes a threat the characters are going to be impacted with, and that's going to impact their individual stories. And this all starts with Vilius being fired as an apprentice from the senator that he works for. After this, he sees his chances of becoming his senator himself diminish greatly. However, Vilius is not someone who easily gives up on his dreams, even when things he's been working towards for years starts to fall apart. Vilius devises a plan to have the Gauls, or at least people dressed up to look like Gauls, attack the inside of Rome. This will then force the Senate to react and call for revenge by officially declaring war against the Gauls. Vilius sees this as his first step in becoming a senator, or as he says in the book, "Ah, revenge, a sweet poison so easily embraced by petty men with weak hearts." Julius is then heavily impacted by this attack on Rome because, being a legionary, he is supposed to keep Rome safe. And after this attack in the heart of the city, he feels like he has failed. He then wants to seek justice for Rome and return it back to its former glory. And this again leads into the theme of ambition, and how ambition can lead you to losing yourself, and maybe even the people around you. The consequences could very well outweigh the prize that you seek, and I must say, this book just shows that masterfully. Unfortunately, after Vilius and Julius are finally reunited in the story, which is something that's been foreshadowed since the beginning of the book, the story then ends. And I really wanted the story to continue, to see how Vilius is going to advance his plans, to see how Julius is going to be impacted by this attack on his home, to see how Calpurnia is going to also continue her goal towards becoming the first female senator of Rome. I really would have preferred if the book was just a little bit longer. And these spoilers are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all the things going on in the story, hence the reason this book captured my attention so much. But really, the best thing I can say about this book is that I just wish there was more to it. And reading a book and having your largest complaint being that you wish there was more to it is, in my opinion, a pretty good thing. Luckily, this is the first book in a planned series, and the author is currently working on a prequel as well as a sequel. So I'm hoping with those additional future books, the ideas, the stories, the characters can be expanded upon. After finishing this book, I can say that I definitely look forward to future installments in the series. More information on this book and the characters can be found in the description of this video, as well as how to purchase this book at a discount, which the author has provided to viewers of this video. Self-published and indie books like this one are a field that I haven't really read that much before, but after finishing this book, I definitely want to check out some more. So if you have any recommendations for me, please let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.